The war had been going on for 3 long years. It spread across 12 different star systems, destroying planets and killing millions. The Galactic Confederacy fought against the Cathari Empire, and neither side was willing to stop. Sergeant Kyle Bennett never thought he would be fighting on an alien world. 6 months ago, humanity had joined the Confederacy. Now he was far from Earth, standing in mud and blood on a planet called Valoran Prime. The sky above him was purple, and the trees around him were made of crystal that sang when the wind blew through them. Everything had gone wrong. The mission was supposed to be simple: land on Valoran Prime, push back the Cathari forces, and free the local population. But the enemy had set a trap. They had been waiting. When the Confederate forces landed, the Cathari attacked from all sides. Kyle's squad got separated from the main army. There were 12 of them at the start. Now only Kyle was left. The others had fallen one by one as they tried to escape through the crystal forest. Private Danny Cole was the last to die. Taking a plasma bolt meant for Kyle. Now Kyle was alone, running through the strange forest, trying to find any friendly forces. His radio was broken. His ammunition was running low. He had cuts and burns all over his body, but he kept moving. That was what humans did. They kept moving. He heard the crash before he saw it. A shuttle had come down hard in a clearing ahead. Smoke rose from its broken hull. The design was Valorian, one of the founding species of the Confederacy. Kyle had seen a few Valorians since joining the war. They were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to glow like moonlight. They were peaceful people, known for their art and philosophy rather than their fighting skills. Kyle approached the wreckage carefully. He did not know if anyone had survived, but he had to check. He was a soldier. He did not leave people behind. The shuttle was destroyed beyond repair. The front section had crumpled on impact, and the back was burning. But in the middle, protected by emergency shields that had activated during the crash, Kyle found someone alive. She was Valorian. He could tell by her glowing skin and her delicate features. But something about her was different from the other Valorians he had seen. Her clothes were rich and fine, covered in symbols that he did not recognize. Around her neck hung a pendant that pulsed with soft light. She was also dying. Silver blood pooled beneath her body. The Valorians did not have red blood like humans. Theirs ran silver like liquid metal. And right now, far too much of it was leaving her body. She had deep wounds on her chest and stomach, and one of her legs was bent at an angle that made Kyle feel sick. He knelt beside her and tried to remember his combat medic training. He pressed his hands against the worst wound on her chest, trying to slow the bleeding. The silver blood was warm against his fingers. Her eyes opened. They were violet, like nothing Kyle had ever seen. Even dying, even in pain, those eyes were beautiful. "Human," she whispered. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a storm. "Leave me. Save yourself." "That is not how we do things," Kyle said. He pulled out his medical scanner and ran it over her body. The readings made no sense to him. He did not know Valorian biology. A holographic image flickered to life from a device on the floor. It was some kind of a medical program that had survived the crash. The image showed a small Valorian in doctor's robes. "I am the Royal Medical Advisor," the AI said. "You must listen carefully. This is Princess Alendra of the Valorian Star Dynasty. She is third in line to the throne." Kyle looked down at the dying woman with new eyes. A princess. He was holding a princess in his arms. "Her royal blood is failing," the AI continued. "She needs a transfusion immediately. But Valorian blood cannot be made in the field. Without a transfusion, she will die within the hour." "What about human blood?" Kyle asked. The AI paused. Its holographic face showed something like concern. "Unknown. Human and Valorian biology have never been tested together." The proteins in human blood are very aggressive. It could save her. It could also kill her faster. The risk is extreme. Kyle looked at the princess. Her breathing was getting slower. Her silver blood kept flowing despite his efforts to stop it. In the distance, he could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. The Kithari were searching the forest. They would find this shuttle soon. He had two choices. He could leave the princess and run. He might survive. Or he could stay and try something that had never been done before. Something that might kill her anyway. For Kyle, there was no choice at all. "Tell me what to do," he said, rolling up his sleeve. The AI protested. "Human, you do not understand. The chances of success are very small. You could be throwing away your life for nothing. Just tell me what to do." The AI was silent for a moment. Then it began to give instructions. Kyle used the shuttle's emergency medical kit. He found needles and tubes and a small machine that could filter blood. The AI told him exactly where to insert the needle in his arm and exactly how to connect the tubes to the princess. It hurt. Drawing his own blood while trying to keep pressure on her wounds was not easy. But Kyle had felt worse pain before. He had survived worse situations before. That was the human way. You took the pain and you kept going. The princess watched him with her violet eyes. She was too weak to speak now, but he could see the confusion on her face. She did not understand why this human stranger was risking his life for her. Kyle did not fully understand it himself. He just knew that he could not let her die. Not if there was any chance at all. The blood began to flow through the tubes. Red human blood mixed with silver Valorian blood in the machine before entering her body. Kyle watched the process with fear in his heart. He had no idea what would happen. No one in the galaxy knew what would happen. For a long moment, nothing changed. The princess lay still. Her breathing remained weak. Kyle began to think that it had not worked, that his blood was not compatible, that she would die anyway. Then her body began to shake. It started small, just a trembling in her hands. Then it spread through her whole body. Her back arched off the deck. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. Silver and red light began to pulse beneath her skin, swirling together like two rivers joining. Kyle grabbed her shoulders, trying to hold her steady. He thought he had killed her. His blood was poison to her system. He had made a terrible mistake, but then he looked at her wounds. They were closing. Not slowly, the way injuries were supposed to heal. They were closing fast, the flesh knitting together before his eyes. In seconds, the deep cuts on her chest became shallow scratches. The scratches became pink lines. The pink lines faded to nothing. The princess stopped shaking. Her eyes flew open, and Kyle saw that they had changed. They were still violet, but now threads of amber ran through them. Human amber. His amber. She sat up with a speed that should have been impossible for someone who had been dying moments before. She looked at her hands, turning them over, examining them as if seeing them for the first time. "What did you do to me?" she whispered. Before Kyle could answer, the shuttle's hull exploded inward. The explosion threw Kyle backward. Metal flew through the air. Fire burst from the torn hull. Through the smoke and chaos, he saw them coming. Kithari warriors. They were insect-like creatures, standing on two legs but covered in hard shells like beetles. Their bodies were armored in both natural chitin and metal plates. They had 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. Their eyes were black and empty, showing no emotion at all. 6 of them poured through the hole in the shuttle. They moved fast, their legs clicking against the metal floor. They made clicking sounds with their mouths as they communicated with each other. Kyle raised his rifle. He knew he could not win this fight. 6 Kithari warriors against 1 tired, bleeding human. The math was simple. He would die here, but he would take some of them with him. He fired. The first shot hit a HFY in the chest, cracking its armor but not stopping it. The creature stumbled but kept coming. Kyle fired again and again, backing away, trying to put distance between himself and the enemy. Then Princess Alindra moved. Kyle did not see her move. One moment she was sitting on the floor behind him. The next moment she was among the HFY, her hands reaching for the nearest warrior. What happened next would stay in Kyle's memory forever. She grabbed the HFY's arm and twisted. The limb came off. Not broke. Came off. She tore it from the creature's body like pulling a branch from a tree. Silver blood, mixed with green HFY blood, sprayed across the walls. The other warriors turned toward her. They were fast, but she was faster. She moved between them like water flowing around rocks. Her hands, which looked so delicate and soft, punched through armor like it was paper. She grabbed one warrior by the head and squeezed until it cracked. Kyle watched in shock. Valorians were not fighters. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. They were peaceful, gentle people who preferred talking to violence. They had weak bodies and soft hands. They needed other species to protect them, but this was not how Valorians were supposed to be. Alindra caught a HFY blade with her bare hand. The metal cut her palm, but she did not seem to care. She pulled the warrior toward her and drove her other hand through its chest. When she pulled her hand back, she was holding something that pulsed and dripped. In 30 seconds. All 6 HFY were dead. Alindra stood among the bodies, breathing hard. Her fine clothes were torn and covered in blood. Silver blood leaked from cuts on her hands and arms. But even as Kyle watched, those cuts began to close. She looked at her hands. They were shaking. "What is happening to me?" she asked. Her voice was different now. Stronger. Deeper. "What did your blood do?" Kyle lowered his rifle slowly. "I do not know. But I think we need to get out of here before more of them come." She looked at him. Those violet and amber eyes studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You saved my life. We can talk about that later. Right now, we need to move." More clicking sounds came from the forest outside. The other HFY had heard the fighting. They were coming to investigate. Alindra nodded. Something had changed in her expression. The confusion and fear were still there, but now there was something else. Something hard and determined. "Yes," she said. "Let us move." They ran. The crystal forest was beautiful and deadly. The trees sang as wind passed through them, creating music that could drive a person mad if they listened too long. The ground was covered in sharp crystals that cut through boots. Strange creatures watched from the shadows with glowing eyes. Kyle led the way, using his training to pick the safest path. But he quickly realized that Alindra did not need his protection. She moved through the forest with a grace that was almost frightening. When they came to a cliff, she jumped down without hesitation, landing on her feet without injury. When they had to cross a river of acid water, she carried Kyle on her back and ran across the surface faster than the acid could burn. "How are you doing this?" Kyle asked when they stopped to rest. Alindra looked at her hands again. Beneath her glowing skin, he could see something new. Red lines running alongside her silver blood vessels. Human blood mixed with her own. "I do not know," she admitted. "I feel everything more than before. The air on my skin, the ground beneath my feet, the sound of your heartbeat." She looked at him. "I can hear your heart. It beats faster than a Valorian heart. It sounds angry, like it is always fighting. Human hearts are like that." "Yes." She flexed her fingers, watching the muscles move. "I think that is what I feel. Fighting. I need to fight. To survive. To never give up." She looked confused. "Valorians do not feel this way. We accept death when it comes. We do not rage against it. And now?" She was quiet for a long moment, Now, I want to live. More than I have ever wanted anything. And anyone who tries to stop me." She did not finish the sentence, but Kyle understood. They kept moving. The sounds of battle grew louder as they got closer to Confederate lines. Kyle tried his radio again, but it was still dead. They would have to find friendly forces the old way, by walking until they saw a friendly flag. They almost walked into a cavalry patrol. 20 warriors moved through the forest ahead of them. Kyle pulled Alindra behind a crystal tree, pressing his finger to his lips for silence. The patrol was too big to fight. Even with Alindra's new powers, 20 was too many, but the patrol was not looking for them. They were hunting something else. Someone else dot through the crystal trees. Kyle saw other figures running. Confederate soldiers, wearing the blue and silver of the main army. There were maybe 30 of them, retreating in a tight formation. They were being pushed back by the cavalry patrol. "We should help them," Alindra said. Kyle shook his head. "We should go around. Find another way." "No." Her voice was firm. "Those soldiers are fighting for the Confederacy. For my people. I will not leave them to die." Before Kyle could stop her, she was gone. She burst from the trees like a silver ghost. The cavalry did not see her coming until she was among them. The first 3 died before they could raise their weapons. The 4th managed to scream before she tore out its throat. Kyle swore and followed her. He could not let her fight alone, even if fighting was insane. The battle was chaos. Cathari warriors turned from the retreating soldiers to face this new threat. Plasma bolts flew through the air. Crystal trees shattered. The singing forest became a screaming forest. Alindra was everywhere. She moved so fast that Kyle could barely track her. Every time he found her with his eyes, she was killing something. Her silver blood sprayed when she was hit, but her wounds closed almost instantly. She was not just strong. She was unstoppable. The Confederate soldiers saw their chance and pushed back. Together with Alindra, they crushed the patrol. The last cavalry tried to run, but Alindra caught it and broke its neck with a quick twist. When the fighting stopped, the Confederate soldiers stared at the princess with wide eyes. They knew what Valorians were supposed to be. They knew this was impossible. A young officer stepped forward. Her uniform was torn and bloody, but she still held herself with authority. "Who are you?" she asked Alindra. "I am Princess Alindra of the Valorian Star Dynasty," she replied. "And this human saved my life." The officer looked at Kyle, then back at Alindra, then at the dead Cathari scattered around them. "How?" she asked simply. Kyle and Alindra looked at each other. How could they explain what had happened? How could they describe something that had never happened before in the history of the galaxy? "It is a long story," Kyle said finally. "Can you get us to command? I think they are going to want to hear this." The officer nodded slowly. "Follow me, and stay close to the princess." She paused. "Or maybe we should stay close to her." They began walking toward Confederate lines. Around them, the crystal forest kept singing its strange song. But now the song seemed different to Kyle, less like mourning, more like celebration. Something had changed today. Something bigger than one battle on one planet. He did not know exactly what, but he could feel it in his bones. The galaxy was never going to be the same. 6 months passed. The voluntary blood program grew faster than anyone expected. Humans from across the galaxy signed up to donate. Some did it for money. Some did it because they believed in the cause. Some did it simply because they wanted to help. The enhanced warriors, as they came to be called, changed the war. Valorians who received human blood became different creatures. They were stronger, faster, and harder to kill. But more than that, they had a new spirit. A fighting spirit. They no longer accepted death calmly. They raged against it. The Cathari noticed. For the first time in 3 years, Their advance slowed. Then it stopped. Then it began to reverse. Kyle saw little of the front lines during this time. His new job kept him at Elendra's side, and she spent most of her days in meetings and ceremonies. As a princess, she had duties that went beyond fighting. She had to represent her people. She had to inspire them. But Kyle knew she missed the battlefield. He could see it in her eyes when news came from the front. He could feel it in the way her hands tightened into fists when she heard about victories she had not been part of. The enhanced warriors were not the only thing spreading. Other species in the Confederacy began asking for human blood transfusions. The Melvery tried it first. Then the Thrix. Then the Krath, who were already strong but wanted to be stronger, thought the results varied. Some species reacted like the Valorians, becoming faster and stronger. Others showed no change at all. A few had bad reactions and became sick. Scientists worked to understand why some species were compatible and others were not. Kyle donated blood twice more during this time. Each donation left him tired for days, but he did not complain. If his blood could help win the war, he would give every drop. Alendra worried about him. "You are pushing yourself too hard," she said one evening. Finding him in his quarters looking pale and weak. "I am fine." "You are not fine. I can hear your heartbeat. It is weaker than it should be." She sat beside him on his bed. "You cannot save the galaxy by draining yourself dry. Someone has to give blood. Might as well be me. There are millions of human donors now. You do not need to be one of them." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were warm and gentle. "I need you healthy. I need you here." Kyle looked at her. In the months they had spent together, something had changed between them. The professional distance of liaison and princess had become something else. Something deeper. "Lynn," he started. "I know," she said. "It is complicated. My people would not approve. Your people might not either. A princess and a common soldier. A Valorian and a human." She paused. "A monster and her creator. You are not a monster. Sometimes I feel like one." She looked at her hands. "I have killed so many since that day in the shuttle. The violence comes easily now. Too easily. Sometimes I dream of blood, and I wake up hungry for it." Kyle took her hands in his. "That does not make you a monster. That makes you a survivor. My blood gave you the tools to survive. What you do with those tools is your choice." She looked at him with her violet and amber eyes. "How do you do it? How do humans live with this fire inside you? This constant urge to fight and survive? We find things worth surviving for." He squeezed her hands. "People worth surviving for." The moment stretched between them. The ship hummed quietly around them. The stars turned slowly outside the window. Then Alindra leaned forward and kissed him. It was not like any kiss Kyle had ever experienced. Her lips were cool at first, then warm. He could taste something sweet and strange on her mouth. His heart pounded in his chest, and he heard her whisper that she could feel it too. Could feel his heart racing through her enhanced senses. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling. It was a real smile, free of duty and worry. "I have wanted to do that for months," she admitted. "Me too. What happens now?" Kyle considered the question. She was right that it was complicated. She was royalty. He was nobody. Their species had only known each other for less than a year. There were 1,000 reasons why this was a bad idea. He did not care about any of them. "Now we figure it out together," he said. "One day at a time." The news of their relationship spread quickly, despite their efforts to keep it private. A princess and a human soldier. The galaxy loved the story. Some called it romantic. Others called it inappropriate. The Valorian court was divided between those who supported the match and those who thought it brought shame to the royal family. Kyle learned to ignore the whispers. Alindra was harder to convince. "They say I've forgotten who I am," she told him one night. "That your blood has made me forget my people and my duties. That I am more human now than Valorian. Is that what you believe?" She was quiet for a long time. "I do not know what I am anymore. When I look in the mirror, I see a stranger. When I feel emotions, I do not know if they are mine or yours or something new entirely. Does it matter? Of course it matters. I am a princess. I have responsibilities." Kyle sat up and faced her. "You are also a person who was given a second chance at life. You get to decide who you want to be, Lynn. Not your family, not your court, not the galaxy. You. And if I choose wrong, then you learn from it and choose again. That is the human way." She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "The human way. You make it sound so simple." It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You just keep trying until you get it right. She wiped her eyes and smiled at him. "I am glad you found me in that shuttle, Kyle Bennett." "Me too, Lynn, me too." The war continued to turn. Enhanced warriors pushed the Kithari back on front after front. Worlds that had been lost were reclaimed. Populations that had been enslaved were freed. For the first time, the Confederacy began to believe that victory was possible, but the Kithari were not ready to give up. Their empire had dominated this region of space for thousands of years. They had crushed countless enemies before. They would not fall to a few drops of human blood. Reports came in of new Kithari weapons, new tactics, new warriors bred specifically to fight the enhanced soldiers. The war was far from over. 1 year after the battle on Valorum Prime, Kyle received new orders. He was being promoted to captain and assigned to a special unit. A unit of enhanced warriors that would lead the final push against the Kithari homeworld. Alindra would be leading the unit. "They want me to fight again," she told him. "To use the monster they created." "You are not a monster. You are a warrior." "There is a difference, is there?" Kyle thought about all the battles he had fought, all the enemies he had killed, all the friends he had lost. He thought about the darkness that sometimes crept into his dreams and the fire that burned in his blood. "Yes," he said finally. "Monsters fight because they enjoy destruction. Warriors fight because they have something to protect. You have people to protect, Lynn. Your family. Your people. The entire Confederacy. And you? Do I fight to protect you?" He smiled. "I can protect myself. I know. But I want to protect you anyway. Is that human or Valorian? I think that is just love." She kissed him again, longer this time. When they separated, her eyes were bright with determination. "Then let us go win this war," she said. "Together." Kyle nodded. He had been a soldier all his adult life. He had fought in battles across the galaxy. But he had never had something this important to fight for. Now he did. The final battle was coming, and they would face it side by side. The Confederate command ship was the largest vessel Kyle had ever seen. It stretched for miles, a floating city in space. Thousands of soldiers from dozens of species lived and worked inside its metal walls. And now it was the center of a storm that no one had expected. Word of what happened on Valorum Prime spread fast. A human soldier had given his blood to a dying Valorian princess. Instead of killing her, the blood had made her stronger than any Valorian in history. She had killed Kithari warriors with her bare hands. She had moved faster than the eye could track. She had healed from wounds in seconds. Everyone wanted to know how. Everyone wanted to know why. Everyone wanted to know if it could happen again. Kyle spent 3 days in debriefing rooms, telling his story over and over to different officers from different species. They asked the same questions in different ways. They recorded his words. They scanned his body. They took samples of his blood. He felt like a laboratory animal. Alindra had it worse. She was a princess, so they treated her with respect. But they also treated her like a specimen. Scientists came to examine her every hour. They measured her strength. They tested her speed. They watched her heal from small cuts they made in her skin. She accepted it all without complaint. But Kyle could see the tiredness in her eyes. He could see how much she hated being studied. On the fourth day, the Confederate Council called a special meeting. The council chamber was a massive room in the heart of the command ship. Representatives from every species in the Confederacy sat in a circle around a raised platform. There were tall Valorians with their glowing skin. There were short Melvari with their 4 arms. There were insect-like Thrix who clicked when they talked. There were dozens of others that Kyle could not name. Humanity had only one representative. A woman named Ambassador Lisa Grant, who had been given the job 6 months ago when humans joined the Confederacy. She looked small and alone among all the alien beings. Kyle and Alindra stood on the platform in the center. Everyone was looking at them. The Valorian High Chancellor spoke first. He was old for a Valorian, his skin dim compared to younger members of his species. But his voice was still strong. "We have called this meeting to discuss what happened on Valoran Prime," he said. "Our scientists have been studying Princess Alindra since her return. Dr. Myvan, please share your findings." Dr. Myvan was a Melvari scientist with 4 arms that never stopped moving. He stepped forward and activated a holographic display that showed images of blood cells and genetic sequences. "What we have discovered is remarkable," Dr. Myvan said. "When human blood enters a Valorian body, it does not simply mix with the existing blood. It transforms it." The display changed to show 2 types of cells merging together. "Human blood carries within it the essence of human evolution," Dr. Myvan continued. "Millions of years of survival, of fighting, of refusing to die. This essence is encoded in the genetic material of human blood. When introduced to Valorian physiology, it awakens dormant potential that has been sleeping in our genes for millennia." A murmur went through the council chamber. "Long ago, Valorians were not peaceful," Dr. Myvan explained. "Our ancestors were hunters, warriors, survivors. But over millions of years, we chose a different path. We became artists and philosophers. We locked away our aggressive instincts. Human blood unlocks them again." The High Chancellor leaned forward. "Are you saying that human blood can make our soldiers as strong as Princess Alindra?" "Yes, and perhaps even stronger. The combination of Valorian and human traits appears to create something greater than either species alone." The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions and concerns. Some seemed excited. Others seemed afraid. Kyle watched them all with growing unease. He caught Ambassador Grant's eye. She looked worried too. Finally, a Krath representative spoke. The Krath were a warrior species, large and covered in scales. They had been fighting the Kethari longer than anyone. "If this is true," the Krath said, "then we should begin transfusions immediately. Every Valorian soldier should receive human blood. We could turn the war around in months." "That is not possible," Ambassador Grant said, standing up. "Humanity did not join this confederacy to become a blood bank. Our people are not resources to be used." "No one said anything about using humans," another representative argued. "We would ask for volunteers. We would pay them. And if there are not enough volunteers, what then? Will you take blood by force?" The chamber exploded into argument again. Kyle watched as species that had been allies moments ago began shouting at each other. The unity of the Confederacy was cracking over this single question. Alindra stepped forward. She raised her hand, and somehow the gesture commanded silence. "I would like to speak," she said. The High Chancellor nodded. Princess, please. Alindra looked around the chamber. Her violet and amber eyes moved from face to face, species to species. 4 days ago, I was dying, she said. My shuttle had crashed. My guards were dead. I was alone and bleeding. I had accepted my death. That is the Valorian way. We accept what comes. She paused. Then a human found me. A soldier named Kyle Bennett. He did not know who I was. He did not know I was a princess. He only knew that I was injured and that he could help. So he helped. She turned to look at Kyle. He gave me his blood even though it could have killed us both. He stayed with me when he could have run to safety. He risked everything for a stranger. She turned back to the council. That is what humans are. They do not accept death. They do not give up. They fight until the very end, and then they fight some more. This is in their blood. Literally. I feel it inside me now. She raised her hand and made a fist. I am stronger than I have ever been. Faster. More resilient. But more than that, I have a fire in my heart that was never there before. A need to survive. A refusal to surrender. She lowered her hand. This gift should not be forced. It should not be taken. If humans choose to share their blood, it should be because they want to, not because we demand it. Otherwise, we are no better than the Cathari. The chamber was silent. Representatives looked at each other. Then, back at the princess. The Krath representative spoke again, but his tone was softer now. The princess makes a fair point. We cannot build our victory on the backs of unwilling donors. But what do the humans say? Will your people volunteer? Ambassador Grant stood again. I cannot speak for all of humanity, but I believe that if we ask for volunteers and treat them with respect, many will come forward. Humans have always been willing to sacrifice for causes they believe in. Then let us create a program, the High Chancellor said. A voluntary program with fair compensation. Those who wish to donate will donate. Those who wish to receive will receive. Everything will be by choice. Kyle raised his hand. Everyone turned to look at him. Double quotes. Yes, Sergeant Bennett? The High Chancellor asked. I just want to say one thing, Kyle said. Whatever you decide, remember that this started with one human trying to help one alien. Do not make it into something ugly. Keep it simple. Keep it good. The High Chancellor nodded slowly. Wise words from a young species. We will try, Sergeant. We will try. The vote passed easily. The voluntary blood program was approved. Scientists began working on ways to collect, store, and transfer human blood safely. Announcements were sent to human worlds asking for volunteers, and Kyle found himself in a new position. He was no longer just a sergeant in the expeditionary force. Now he was famous. The human who saved the princess. The first donor. The symbol of human generosity. He hated every moment of it. After the council meeting, Alindra found him sitting alone in an observation deck, watching the stars. You do not enjoy being famous, she said, sitting beside him. No, I just did what anyone would do. That is not true. Many would have left me to die. Self-preservation is natural. She paused. But not for humans, it seems. Or at least, not for you. Kyle shrugged. Maybe I am just stupid. Alindra laughed. It was a strange sound, not quite Valorian. Warmer, more human. Perhaps, she said. But I am grateful for your stupidity. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm against his. I have asked the council to assign you as my liaison. You're what? A human who stays close to me. Helps me understand humans. Helps me understand myself. She looked at their joined hands. I am not fully Valorian anymore. I am not human either. I am something new. I need someone to help me figure out what that means. Kyle considered this. He had expected to go back to his unit to return to normal soldiering. But nothing was normal anymore. "All right," he said finally. "I will be your liaison. But I have one condition." "What?" "Stop calling me Sergeant Bed. My name is Kyle." She smiled. It was a beautiful smile, made more beautiful by the amber fire in her eyes. "Then you must call me Alindra. Or Lynn, as my family does." Kyle smiled back. "Deal, Lynn." Outside the observation window, the stars burned bright and cold. The war was still raging. The Cathari were still out there. Nothing had been solved yet, but something had begun. Something that would change the galaxy forever, and it started with a simple act of kindness between two strangers. The Cathari homeworld was called Keth Prime. It was a dark planet, covered in black mountains and endless caverns. The sky was always red from the dust storms that raged across its surface. It was an ugly world, but it was the heart of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Now that empire was about to fall. 2 years had passed since Kyle gave his blood to a dying princess. The war had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Enhanced warriors from a dozen species now fought for the Confederacy. Humans had become more than just the newest members of the Alliance. They had become the key to victory. Kyle stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Starfall, watching Keth Prime grow larger in the view screen. Around him, officers from different species worked at their stations. The tension was so thick he could taste it. Alindra stood beside him. She wore combat armor that gleamed silver and red, colors she had chosen to represent her dual nature. Her violet and amber eyes were fixed on the planet below. "This is it," she said quietly. "If we win today, the war is over. We will win." She glanced at him. "You sound very certain." "I am. I have seen what our people can do together. The Cathari do not stand a chance." The assault began at dawn, local time. Hundreds of dropships fell from the sky like metal rain. The Cathari defenses opened fire, filling the air with plasma and missiles. Ships exploded. Soldiers died. But the attack kept coming. Kyle's dropship made it to the ground intact. He led his squad out into the red dust, his rifle ready. Around him, enhanced warriors poured from other ships. Valorians with silver and red blood. Malvari with 4 arms that could crush stone. Krathu moved like mountains with scales of steel dot and humans. Ordinary humans who had not been enhanced but who fought anyway. Who refused to sit back while others bled for them. The Cathari met them with everything they had. Thousands of warriors swarmed from underground tunnels. War machines crawled across the landscape, firing weapons that could level buildings. The sky burned with the light of battle. Kyle fought. He fired his rifle until it overheated, then drew his sidearm. He killed enemy after enemy, but more kept coming. A Cathari blade cut his arm. A plasma bolt burned his leg. He kept fighting. Beside him, Alindra was a storm of violence. She moved through the enemy ranks like a ghost, leaving bodies in her wake. Her armor was soon covered in green Cathari blood. Her hands, which had once been soft and delicate, were weapons more deadly than any blade. But even she was not invincible. A Cathari commander, larger than any Kyle had seen before, emerged from the chaos. It wore black armor covered in spikes and symbols. Its 4 arms held 4 different weapons. Its eyes, unlike the empty eyes of normal Cathari, burned with hatred and intelligence. "Human-touched creature," it said, pointing at Alindra. "You are an abomination, a mockery of the natural order. I will tear you apart and send your remains to your precious humans as a warning." Alindra stepped forward to meet it. "You can try." They clashed with a force that shook the ground. The commander was fast, faster than normal Cathari. It had been enhanced too, Kyle realized. The enemy had found their own way to make stronger warriors. But it was not enough. Alindra blocked its attacks with her arms, ignoring the pain as blades cut her flesh. She grabbed one of its weapons and bent it in half. She caught its fist and squeezed until bones cracked. When it tried to retreat, she followed, relentless as death itself. "You call me an abomination," she said, her voice calm despite the violence. "But I know what I am. I am the daughter of two peoples. The strength of humans and the grace of Valorians. I am not less than what I was. I am more." She drove her hand through its armor and into its chest. The commander made a choking sound. Its eyes, so full of hate a moment ago, went wide with shock. "And you," Alindra said, pulling her hand free, "are nothing." The commander fell. The Cathari around them saw their leader die and hesitated. That hesitation cost them everything. The Confederate forces surged forward. With their commander dead, the Cathari defense crumbled. Warriors who had fought fiercely moments ago began to retreat, then to run, then to surrender. By sunset, the citadel at the heart of Keth Prime was surrounded. Kyle and Alindra entered the citadel together. Behind them came a squad of the best enhanced warriors in the Confederate forces. They moved through empty halls decorated with the trophies of 1,000 conquered worlds. Skulls and weapons and flags from species that no longer existed at the center of the citadel. They found the Emperor. He was ancient, even for a Cathari. His shell was gray and cracked. His forearms hung limp at his sides. He sat on a throne made of bones, watching them approach with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "So," the Emperor said, his voice like stones grinding together, "the mongrel princess and her pet human. You have destroyed everything my ancestors built. Your ancestors built an empire of slavery and death," Alindra replied. "We have ended it." The Emperor laughed. It was a terrible sound, full of bitterness and broken dreams. "You think this is the end? You think killing me will bring peace? There will always be war. There will always be those who seek to dominate. You have changed nothing." Kyle stepped forward. "Maybe, but today, we have saved billions of lives. Today, worlds will sleep without fear of Cathari raiders. Today, children will grow up free instead of in chains. That is not nothing." The Emperor studied him with ancient eyes. "You are the one who started this. The human who gave his blood. Do you know what you have done? You have created a new kind of creature. Neither human nor alien. Something between. I know. And you are proud of it?" Kyle looked at Alindra, at her silver skin and amber-touched eyes, at the strength in her body and the fire in her heart, at the woman he loved, who loved him back. "Yes," he said. "I am proud." The Emperor shook his head slowly. "Then you are a fool. But perhaps all young species are fools. Perhaps that is why you survive when older, wiser species fall." He raised one trembling arm. For a moment, Kyle thought he might have a weapon, but the Emperor simply pointed at them. "Remember this day, human. Remember that you changed the galaxy with a single act of foolish bravery. And remember that change always has a price." Then he closed his eyes, and his ancient heart stopped beating. The last Emperor of the Cathari died on his throne of bones, surrounded by the ruins of everything he had built. The war was over. 3 months later, Kyle and Alindra stood on a balcony in the Valorian royal palace. Below them, millions of people had gathered to celebrate. The sky was filled with ships from every member species of the Confederacy, flying in formation as a symbol of unity. "They want me to speak," Alindra said, "to inspire them, to tell them about the future we are building. What will you say?" She was quiet for a moment. "I will tell them the truth, that we won this war not through strength alone, but through unity, through different species working together, combining their gifts. Humans gave us their fire. We gave them our grace. Together, we became something neither could be alone. That sounds good. She smiled and took his hand. I will also tell them about you. About the soldier who refused to leave a dying stranger behind. About the man who started a revolution with a single act of kindness. Kyle felt his face grow warm. I was just doing my job. No, you were being human. And that made all the difference. She leaned over and kissed him. Below, the crowd cheered. They could not see the kiss from so far away, but they knew about the princess and her human soldier. Everyone in the galaxy knew. When the kiss ended, Alindra turned to face her people. Kyle stood beside her, proud and humble at the same time. My people, she called out, her voice carried by speakers across the city. Today we celebrate not just victory, but transformation. We are not the same confederacy that began this war. We have been changed by our allies, changed by our trials, changed by each other. She raised her hand, and red light pulsed beneath her silver skin. Some called my transformation a curse, a pollution of pure Valorian blood. But I call it a gift. The gift of human courage, human stubbornness, human heart. And this gift is not just mine. It belongs to everyone who carries enhanced blood. Everyone who has learned from our human allies. She lowered her hand and smiled. The old galaxy is gone. A new one has begun. Let us build it together. The crowd roared its approval. Fireworks lit the sky. Music played from 1,000 instruments. The celebration would last for days, but Kyle barely noticed. He was watching Alindra, seeing the joy on her face, feeling the warmth of her hand in his. He thought about everything that had happened since that day on Valorum Prime. The blood he had given, the lives he had saved, the love he had found. He had changed the galaxy, not with weapons or speeches or grand plans, just with simple human stubbornness. The refusal to let someone die when he could help Dodd. It was not a complicated thing, but sometimes the simplest things made the biggest difference. Above them, the stars shone bright and cold. They had always been there, watching civilizations rise and fall. But now, for the first time in a long time, they seemed to shine with hope. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun. And humanity, the youngest species in the Confederacy, had shown them the way. The end.